Alright, so let's work on the problems together, and I've gone ahead to copy out all the questions that we'll be solving. The first task is to print the total count of books. To do that, we use the count function, and we count title from books. When we run this, we have 23, which is the total number of books that we have. And if we want, we can use an alias and say total number, I'll just say total books. Right. So that solves the first question. The next is to print out how many books were released in each year. With this, we would have to print out two columns. The first column would show the total number of books, and the next column will show the corresponding year in which those books were released. We'll be using the count function again. Title. And the second column would be year released. And then we have to, so from books, and now we have to group our results. And what do we group with? We group by the year released. Right? And let's order by year released. Right? So let's run this. So it shows us, let's order descending. So now we can see that we have a column which shows a total number of books, and then next to that we have the year released. And we'll have to give this an alias, and it is number of books. Alright, this. Alright, moving on. The next task is to print out the total number of available copies of all our books. So what we'll be doing is to sum together all of the average copies within the books table. Alright. So we select, and then we use sum of available copies from books. And we should give this an alias as well, and let's call this as total available copies. Right. Let's run our query. So the total number of available copies within our books table is 4005. Moving on, the next will be to print out our author's first name, the author's last name, and the average released year of their books. So select, we have our author first name, we have author last name, and now we have the average of year released, and we'll use the alias as average released year. Okay, and now from books, and what we want to do is to group by, and we'll group by our author first name and author last name, and let's order Let's order by author last name. Okay. Let's print that out. So we have our author's first name, the author's last name, and the average released year. And of course, for all authors that only have one book, it's just going to show the year that book was released. For authors that has multiple books, it will basically add those 2 years together and divide by the total number of books that they do have. The next is to print out this table. So we have our countries. We would then print out the highest purchases for each country, the lowest purchases, the average amount, the total amount, and the number of transactions. All right, let's make some space. So the first thing we want to do is we want to select first the country. And the next would be we need the max because we have to print out the highest purchase for each country, right? So we need the max of order amount. And we have an alias as highest purchase. And the next column is to print the minimum order amount as lowest purchase. And then we want the average of order amount as average amount spent. And now we want the total amount, so the sum of the amount as total amount spent. And then we want the count of all the transactions, and as number of transactions, right? Then there'll be from customers, and then we want to group by. We want to group by the country, and let's also order a result set. And missing there. Let's order by total amount spent. Total amount spent. All right. So let's quickly go through the query before I run it. We are saying that print out the countries within our table. I also want to see the maximum, the highest purchase that was made, and for that we use the max function. For the lowest purchase, we use the min function. For the average amount spent, we use the average function. For the total amount spent, we use the sum function. And to find out the number of transactions, the number of individual transactions within each country, we use the count. And here we're just using the count star, count all, because we know each record is a transaction, right? And then from customers, and then we group by the country because we're presenting all the results by country, and then we order by the total amount spent. Let's go ahead and run this. So now we have the results that we requested, and we can, okay, it's fine. I was going to change this to descending, but it's fine. So it's in ascending, and we can see that the Netherlands has the least amount spent, and it was just one transaction, and Germany has the most amount spent with 8 transactions. Next, we want to find the total number of transactions, the total amount spent by customers in Germany, right? It will be, part of the query will be similar to what we've just done here, except I would then restrict it to just customers in Germany. Okay, so we want the customer name, and then we want to see the total number of transactions each customer did. So use the count all, and we'll have an alias as number of transactions. And then the next would be, we want to see the sum of the transaction, so the total amount spent, so the other amount, and that will be as amount spent. And we also want to print out the country. Okay. And then from customers, now we will group our results. And let's group by, we'll group by the customer name as well as the country. And then we can, now because we only want results from Germany, we only want to print the result from our client or our customers in Germany, we can use the avin, then we say country equals Germany. And now we can also order our result, and let's order by customer name, right? So when we run this, now we see all of our customers in Germany. We see the number of transactions that they did, the amount they spent, and also the last column, which shows that they are all from Germany. The next will be a subquery, and what we want to do is we want to print out the customer name and the amount of the customer with the lowest purchase price. So the customer which was the lowest purchase price, we want to print out their name as well as the amount. So since we're using a subquery and printing out the lowest amount, we know we have to use the main function. So let's start by typing out the inner query. So select main and main order amount, and we're from customers, right? So this would give us the minimum, but now because we cannot print out the name, we would have to use the outer query to do that. So we have select, we want customer name, and we also want the other amount, and let's say from customers where other amount equals, and then it will equals all of this, right? Yes. Okay, so we have the inner query, which retrieves the minimum order amount, and we have the outer query that prints out the name and the amount of that transaction. Okay, so let's run this, and we'll see that that customer is Fatsua Collins. The next subquery is to print out customers so we want to see the name of our customers that made purchases over 2,000. Okay, so again, let's write the inner query first. So select, and we want just the other amount from customers, and say where other amount is greater than 2,000. In the next video, I believe we'll be talking about logical operators. We'll be using the greater than and the less than sign and other logical operators. So I know we've not really talked much about it, but I recall we did an example using the greater sign earlier on. So we're just doing exactly the same thing now. So this is saying retrieve for me all records from the customers table where the order amount is above is greater than 2,000, right? And let's just run this first, right? So now we see that all of our list, our results set is over 2,000, okay? So now let's write the outer query. So we have select customer name, and we want the order amount. From customers. Where other amounts. And now because inner query is giving us a range of values, not just one distinct value, we will use the in operator. Okay, so where other amounts in. Now we have then we close our parentheses there. Okay, so let's just quickly go through this again. The inner query selects this range or this values of this records, and then we use the outer query to print out the customer name and the amount. Let's run this. So now we have our customer name. Now we can still sort our record. So we know that the inner query ends here, but we can still use the order by to sort our record. So let's sort by order amount, and we want descending. So execute. All right. I hope you guys managed to get those right, but if you didn't, that's all right. You know, it's still a process of learning, and that's why we're doing this together.